How long should Quagmire's prison sentence be? Ever wondered how Glenn Quagmire, the walking sexual lawsuit, manages to stay out of prison? The guy has literally pulled everything from the harassment cookbook, from keeping sex slaves...
Peter, what the hell? My car! Oh, damn it! Hey, come back!
...to committing mass slaughter.
Quagmire, look out!
Tragically killing all the teenagers on board.
I went down this rabbit hole this week, and let's just say, if the law ever caught up with him, he won't ever make it out. So here's a breakdown of how long Quagmire's prison sentence will be. Stay tuned to find out, because this is a debate you won't want to miss. Number 10. Quagmire peeps Lois without consent. In this episode, Quagmire apparently spies on Lois when she's in a public toilet.
Would you just sit down and go to the bathroom already?
And this is after her husband has gone blind.
Would you just sit down and go to the bathroom already?
He immediately gets caught, and the woman of Quahog demand to get him kicked out. Peter and his guy gang support Quagmire and plead with the ladies to let him stay. The women agree, but on one condition, that Quagmire would have to keep it in his pants.
Now don't worry about a thing, Quagmire. Your pals are gonna help you change your ways.
He still keeps stalking women, peeping at them from holes, and throughout the seasons, he even films them without their knowledge. This is an invasion of their privacy, and if this was the real world, Quagmire would be declared a disgusting pervert. For this invasion of privacy without consent, Quagmire would face about 10 years in prison with a $20,000 fine. And that's if Lois doesn't sue him, because in that case, we'll be talking millions. Number 9. Keeping sex slaves. In the Airport 07 episode, Quagmire shows us just how far into criminal territory he's willing to go. It starts when Peter accidentally backs his truck into Quagmire's car, which sounds like something Peter would do. But the next thing that happened blows my mind, because when Quagmire's trunk opens up, 4 steamy Japanese women jump out, and they make a run for their freedom. Now, if that thought wasn't horrifying enough, Peter later crashes into the garage, releasing a dozen more women. When Peter offers to help round up the woman, Quagmire calmly says they're tagged. Yeah, he's not talking about a price tag. This means Quagmire has been enslaving foreign women and keeping them as prisoners for his own sick desires. In the real world, Quagmire would be facing human trafficking charges, which carry a minimum of 15 years per victim. With at least 16 victims shown in the episode, we're looking at 240 years behind bars. And let's not forget about the fines, because human trafficking cases often come with penalties of up to $1.5 million per victim. So, Quagmire is going to be homeless and in jail even after paying the $24 million. Now, this is all assuming if the court doesn't find more skeletons in his closet or in his trunk. And spoiler alert, they're about to find something much worse. Number 8. Pedophilia and grooming. So this one time, Quagmire meets Kiera, and they instantly hit it off in the most predictable and sleazy way.
That's okay. I'll just take the school bus. I'm in high school.
What the hell? You said you were 23!
Now, the girl claims to be 23 years old, and naturally, Quagmire's vetting process isn't that ironclad. He doesn't even bother to double-check if the girl is even breathing and instantly sleeps with her. The next morning, the cops bust down the door, and guess what happens next?
Quagmire, I'm afraid you're under arrest for statutory rape.
It turns out Kiera isn't just underaged, she's well underaged. And instead of being guilty about sleeping with a literal minor, Quagmire doubles down, treating the whole thing like it's funny.
I don't want to go to jail, but I really want to take credit.
This crime could be considered statutory rape, and while Kiera lying about her age might give him some slight benefit, it doesn't really absolve him.
All right, but let me just send the pictures I took of her last night to all my friends.
In most states, statutory rape involving a minor of under 16 carries a sentence of over 20 years. But alongside the jail time, Quagmire would also have to pay some hefty fines, anywhere from around $5,000 to $25,000.
I have no choice but to sentence you to 20 years in prison.
And if Kiera's parents decide to file a civil lawsuit for emotional damage, Quagmire would pretty much lose everything. But you'd be shocked to know that this isn't even the most disturbing crime. Number 7. Spreading STDs. We all know Quagmire's reputation as Captain Syphilis. The guy's basically a walking petri dish. And in this episode titled Quagmire's Dad, he's seen spreading STDs like it's candies, and he doesn't even care one bit about it. From syphilis to hepatitis C, this guy's got it all. The worst part, though, he's openly exposing women to these diseases without any guilt.
Gotcha! Ha! Hepatitis C!
Joke's on you, I already got it.
He also dives into illegal prostitution and regularly has unprotected sex with women without them knowing that he has STDs.
Thank God. You want to have unprotected sex?
In the real world, knowingly passing on an STD is considered a serious crime and punishable by up to 3 months in prison. But given Quagmire's disgusting track record, this could easily stack up to several years behind bars. So let's say Quagmire has been with at least 1,000 women. 750 of them probably caught something. That's 750 years of prison time if we're counting. But even then, Quagmire isn't learning from his mistakes because guess what he did next? Number 6. Shooting Peter. While Quagmire, Peter, and Joe are on their infamous hunting trip, Peter starts annoying the shit out of Quagmire. Peter creates absolute chaos when he accidentally shoots Quagmire in the arm. Now, remember that this was considered an accident.
Quite the difference, huh?
Quagmire cuts Peter off and stops him from talking, typical gaslighting behavior. But Peter, being the people pleaser, offers Quagmire to shoot him, and this was supposed to set the record straight. Quagmire instantly agrees, and this is considered intentional shooting.
I need you to shoot me in the arm so we can be friends again.
Okay.
Peter gets super freaked out at the last moment and backs out.
I passed the test?
No, Peter.
This offends Joe, who just wants to get it over with. So he shoots Peter in the arm instead.
It's over. We're all friends again.
But this mess is still not resolved because now Peter wanted to shoot Joe. So to put an end to all of this, Quagmire grabs the gun and shoots Peter right in the head.
All right, we're good.
Now, Quagmire's decision to shoot Peter isn't about self-defense or payback. For this crime, he'll be charged with 25 years in prison without parole because it would be considered attempted murder. An additional 20 years would be added for aggravated assault, and a fine of up to $10,000 would be imposed. But by this point, Quagmire's pockets are basically bone dry. For shooting Peter like this, he could also be charged for an additional 10 years for reckless endangerment to public safety. If convicted, Quagmire is easily looking at 55 years in prison, along with tens of thousands in fines. Although Peter did survive, which could benefit him a little, his track record won't do him any favors. Although his next crime would show you just how reckless the guy really is. Number 5. Having illegitimate children.
Hi there, my name's Glenn Griffin. I'm here to pick up my son, Peter.
Daddy? Papa?
Oh, God!
Quagmire has pretty much left a trail of illegitimate children across the globe. Thanks to his adventurous lifestyle, Quagmire has basically fathered dozens, if not hundreds, of children. While most of these kids are left with no idea who their father really is, Quagmire has occasionally stepped accidentally into the dad role for about 5 minutes. But the vast majority of Quagmire's kids have been completely neglected by their father. He's basically a ghost dad and vanishes as soon as his 2 minutes of pleasure are over. But there's something even more twisted in his list of illegitimate children. So Quagmire has even fathered a human-giraffe hybrid in one of his wild escapades.
I'm glad we waited. Giraffity! Yeah, see, that's not mine.
In the real world, neglecting your kids like this and not even acknowledging them isn't just morally wrong, it's actually a legal nightmare. If Quagmire was held accountable for his legion of abandoned kids, the justice system would surely have a field day. Now, failing to provide basic needs for a child like food, shelter, and even acknowledging their existence is considered child neglect. If convicted, Quagmire is seeing 10 years in prison just for one child, including $10,000 in fines. Let's assume Quagmire has about 100 kids, and trust me, I'm only making the least estimate because this guy is a man whore. So, if he has 100 kids, he'd be charged with 1,000 years in prison, 10 years for each, and $1 million in fines. One missed payment of child support usually results in 6 months of prison sentence. So, if we just round it up by saying that Quagmire has missed the payments of his children for 20 years, we're easily looking at another 1,000 years in prison. He'd have to be in prison for over 2,000 years with at least $1 million of criminal fines and possibly billions in civil damages.
Oh my God.
Think of it as 2 10-year-olds, you sick freak.
But the guy's legacy doesn't end here. Number 4, mass murder and insurance fraud. So up next, Quagmire decides to help Mort with his pharmacy, and he was doing it all out of the goodness of his heart. Sounds innocent, right? Well, wrong. He's the last person you should trust with anything. Things start going seriously wrong in Quagmire's mission to help Mort with his business, and his horniness gets out of control.
Look. All right.
That was a close one.
Yeah, but at least nobody got hurt.
While being super busy with his lust, Quagmire accidentally loses the banner of Mort's Pharmacy, which sails off into the street. And wait until you hear what happens next.
After a banner of theirs caused the bus to drive off a bridge, tragically killing all the teenagers on board.
The banner causes a massive accident, causing a bus to swerve off the road, crashing and burning everybody on board. Yes, everyone. So Quagmire's libido officially has a body count. You'd think this is the point where he'll freak out and try to fix the situation. Well, no, not Quagmire. Quagmire and Peter come up with just one solution, which is insurance fraud. So they decide to burn down the pharmacy and collect the insurance money, because obviously adding arson to manslaughter is the only logical next step. They walked away free after committing manslaughter, arson, and also insurance fraud, all in one episode. If he was convicted for the bus accident on the basis of manslaughter, he'd be given 15 years in prison for each victim. So let's say that there were 30 victims on the bus. Quagmire would be spending the next 450 years in prison, with of course, the $250,000 in fines for each victim. For arson, he'd easily be given 20 years in prison, and insurance fraud would be an additional 10 years. So, adding it all up, Quagmire would be behind bars for about 480 years with over $7 million in fines. But this isn't the only example of Quagmire's complete disregard for the law. Number 3. Murdering his sister's boyfriend. After nearly dying on one of his crazy adventures, Quagmire decides to reconnect with his sister Brenda. On paper, they seem like a perfect family, but that's until Brenda's boyfriend Jeff walks in. It doesn't take long for everyone to see how Jeff is an even shittier and abusive man than Quagmire.
Hey, you touching my girl?
Relax, Jeff. That's her brother.
Yeah, that's how it starts.
So Quagmire with his guy gang decides that the only solution is to take Jeff out. Literally.
I thought you hated my guts.
Oh, come on, Jeff. I don't hate your guts.
They invite Jeff on a nighttime hunting trip, which is code for "we're gonna kill you, bro." but Jeff somehow sees through their plan and charges on Quagmire. He almost chokes Quagmire to death, but Quagmire slips out, gets inside his car, and runs the guy over to finish the job. Jeff is officially donezo. Now sure, Jeff was a total waste of oxygen, but murder is still murder. This would be counted as first-degree murder, which means life in prison without parole or the death penalty. An additional 15 years would be given to him for a homicide and 20 years for obstruction of justice because they literally, obviously covered up the murder. And as it wasn't enough for Quagmire, he goes one step ahead. Number 2, murdering the Simpsons. In an uncensored promo crossover with the Simpsons, Quagmire tries to seduce and even assault Marge Simpson. As if this wasn't bad enough, he even sneaks into the bed with her, and this was the point where I began to feel really uncomfortable.
What do you say we go back to your place for round 2?
Sounds good to me.
When Homer catches Quagmire red-handed, guess what was his response? Apologize? Nope. He whips out a gun and murders Homer in cold blood. Marge freaks out at this and threatens to call the police. Rather than owning up to his actions, Quagmire shoots her too. And if you thought that it couldn't get any worse, wait for what he did next.
Oh no! Who will pay for my saxophone?
So Quagmire also finished the job completely by also taking the lives of Bart, Lisa, and the baby Maggie. Yes, baby Maggie too. The man took out an entire family just because he couldn't keep it in his pants. This is as disgusting as it gets. Because Quagmire attempted first-degree murder of 5 people, he'd be sentenced with 5 life sentences without parole, 5 additional years for breaking and entering, and 10 years for assault, and 60 years for child endangerment. Quagmire will be spending 5 lives in prison plus 60 years for good measure. Oh, and he'd be paying millions in fines if it weren't for the fact that he'd never see daylight again. It's not just his own life that he has wrecked, there's another person who he has really done wrong. Number 1. Faking a death to break his marriage. In one of the episodes, Quagmire apparently falls for Joan, a sweet and unhinged maid. For a brief moment, I really feel like the old perv has turned over a new leaf. He's suddenly cooking dinner, wearing sweaters, and pretending to be monogamous. But surprise, surprise, the new Quagmire doesn't last long when he quickly realizes that he hates being married.
Giggity, giggity, God, I've made a terrible mistake!
Rather than confronting Joan like a grown man, Quagmire starts looking at his options. He considers divorce, but Joan isn't exactly mentally stable either, so she shuts it down with a knife and also a few death threats.
Good, because if you ever left me, I'd cut you.
Peter Griffin advises him to fake his own death, which results in him going to a lighthouse. Joan follows him and she falls to her death. Now let's unpack this disaster. So Quagmire faked his own death, for which he'll be charged with 20 years. Negligent manslaughter will be an additional 25 years, and he could be sued for millions too. If we add up all of Quagmire's crimes, he'll be looking at over 2,940 years in prison. So that's like around 200 life sentences. I also took a rough estimate of all the fines that he'll have to pay, and we're definitely talking about fines over $100 million. So which one of Quagmire's crimes do you think is unforgettable? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next video trying to dive into some other creeps' crimes, but don't forget to hit that subscribe button.